Good morning and welcome to part 7 of the I've Got Wood video series. Now, part 7 could very well be the last part in this series because it was originally my intention when I started this was just to do some quick instructional videos on how to do a little bit of covering. Not elaborate covering, just some basic covering because that's really all I'm good at. So this brings me to the question of, if this is the last video, and what I'm intending to do in this video is just show covering the top of one of these wing panels. Now I did go through yesterday and I finished the bottom wing, and I'll show that to you here. Finished the bottom half of the covering of the wing, and I'll show that to you. Those of you that didn't see the origins of how this plane came to me, go back and watch old school video. I think it's 2 or 3 where it shows the SIG Cadet I'm holding. So that was a Facebook Marketplace score, and the person I bought this from did an excellent job on the fuselage. He's got the tail surfaces. In fact, I brought the stabilizer and elevator up here with me to show you. He did the fuselage, and he just did a fantastic job. I mean, it looks exactly like the box. And quite honestly, I believe that that level of detail is a little bit beyond my skill and patience range, so I'm not sure that I'm actually going to, once I cover the top of this wing with red, I'm not sure how much more detail I'm going to go. I think I know I mentioned that I was going to do a black and white scheme on the bottom of the wing. Whether I show that or not, or whether I even do that or not, is uncertain at this time. So I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this because, as I've said many times before, I really have no intentions of flying anytime soon. Now, I think it's safer to have this wing completely covered for storage and moving and transport and those types of things in a fully covered state because it'll just offer a measure of protection. But honestly, I just don't know that I have the skill set or the patience or the time with the amount of content that I'd like to be posting here to do the elaborate scheme that's on the SIG Cadet box, which I'll show you right now. That's pretty complex stuff that I just don't know that I could reproduce. So I'm not really sure what the end product, the end result of this airplane is going to look like, or if anybody will ever see it. But with that said, let's get to finishing up some covering on the wing here. Okay, so I've got a lot of stuff on the table here. I've got the wing, which, let me flip it over here and show you, is completely finished on this side. And if I can get the wingtip over here and this side without damaging the wing. So the wing, and this is as far out as this lens will zoom, is completely covered, and here's my center section. You can see there is a little bit where I overlapped. You can see that, but it's one of those things where, you know, that's going to be inside the plane. Nobody's going to see it. And at 5 feet or 30 miles an hour is what I like to say, nobody's going to notice a difference. And not like I care really anyway. So here is the completed, and this is how it came to me. This is how I got this. This is the completed stabilizer and elevator. Now I just cleaned it up because it had been out in the garage and it had been getting a little bit of stuff on it. But Chris of Perky Planes, just for your curiosity, this is what a good hinge line should look like. You should see very little, if any, gap there, but yet still have full deflection. So this is what I believe, at least it was mentioned on there was a sticker from the monocoat that the fellow used stuck onto the SIG Cadet instructions saying that this is true red. Now this is the red that Jimmy sent me, which I believe is missile red. So there is a slight hue difference. So I'm already going to be deviating from the color scheme somewhat, and I think that this might be noticeable in sunlight, but you know, maybe not, I don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to show how beautiful this section is and how the previous owner that did this, so you can see the reflection of the light box thing, or the light reflector that I've got, and it kind of makes it look like there's wrinkles in the covering, but there aren't. But you can see how awesome this guy was at covering this, and of course if you could get a good close-up look at the fuselage, you'd see what in tremendous detail and how awesome that looks too. So I'm going to put this aside for now, put it someplace safe. So I cut some monocoat here, and again I did the same thing as I did before. I just cut it across I didn't roll the whole thing out. So I've cut it across. That's how I like to do it, because I don't mind having small patches. So the question I have to ask myself here is, I've got this such that I've got it cut wide enough. I think I did 13 inches, such that I can have some overlap. Hopefully you can see this. I want to have some overlap that's about, I don't know, maybe ½ inch going over the top. And that may not be aesthetically as appealing, and maybe it doesn't have to be that much, but I want a little bit of overlap that goes around the leading edge and it comes down underneath. And the reason for that is, now I know that adhering monocoat to monocoat is a very, very good bond. However, I have seen, I don't know if it happened to me or if it happened to somebody else, I have actually seen where monocoat, you know, airflow got in between the top and bottom and it pulled that up. And when the top covering of a wing comes off and flies off in midair while you're flying, your plane no longer has lift and it goes down very quickly. So I've seen that happen. I can't recall if it was me or somebody else. Now I don't know exactly how they did that, but from that point on, when I saw that, it's like I always have an overlap. Now I don't have to do an overlap because I believe that, like I said, the monocoat to monocoat adhesion to each other is really good. So I could just do this. I still haven't really thought about how I'm going to do this. If I'm going to do the overlap or if I'm just going to put it right up here at the leading edge, because I trust the adhesion of monocoat onto monocoat. So maybe I'll just do that. And if that's the case, then I cut a little bit too much here. But anyway, so the next question I have to determine is what I want this to look like. How am I going to do this for ease of covering? So I did think about potentially just doing one of these type of things, because I could use this trailing edge here as a nice marker to hold it and align it, so that then I could just tack and make sure that I have this wing panel, this whole thing straight and exactly like I want it. Or, and then I could either make this white, black, a different color, just to make it look different, or I can make it red and just put more red on top of it, which you wouldn't really notice anyway. Or I could just go ahead and extend this all the way out here, and then it's going to be a little bit more challenging to make sure I get the alignment that I want, because if I'm going to do the edge here, I would rather not do that by having to cut and make it look all nice and pretty. I would rather do this by having it properly aligned to begin with, because I'd like to try to avoid making cuts if at all possible, because unless you're using a new blade every single time, you can kind of get some ripples and stuff like that. So these are some things I have to decide. Now either way, this isn't going to be long enough to cover the center section, so that would be another thing, is do I just recover or do a patch on the center that's red, or do I do one that's black? You know, or red and black, kind of like the image on the box. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to figure that out, so I'm going to kind of turn the camera off and consider my options here before I actually turn the iron on and then start doing some covering. Okay, so I've pondered this for a few minutes, and I think I've decided that what I'm going to do is fold that chair up, because I'm not going to be sitting while I do this, I don't believe. What I think I'm going to do is this, is instead of doing the overlap like I talked about, I'm just going to line this thing up right with the leading edge, right at the tip of the leading edge. Trust the monocoat to monocoat adhesion bond, and use this and just do it out to here and use this as the tip of the trailing edge here is my guide. So the kicker is I have to pull this here and find, and this isn't exactly the easiest thing to do either. Find this and then hope that translates. So what I'm going to end up doing here is my iron is still heating up. So I'm going to try and hold this in place just like that. And then I'm just going to, yeah, my iron's not hot enough. I was just going to tack it one time. My iron's not hot enough yet. Tack it and then make sure I can still align it a little bit if there's any alignment issues. So I guess perhaps I should have lined my, or turned my iron on a bit sooner. It gives me more time to sit here and think about this. Because I really kind of want this red to be lined up with the white here. I don't know, maybe I'm taking the harder approach. It very well could be. Oh, well, you know why it's not hot enough, David. Sometimes it helps if you remove the backing. Not sometimes, it always helps if you take the backing off the monocoat. Oh yeah, that monocoat feels 50% lighter now too. Hoping I'm not putting my head in the way here, but it's kind of more imperative that I see what I'm doing than you see what I'm doing at this moment. So I'm just going to tack that right there. So it seems like it's in place. Now, since the leading edge is the most important part, I'm going to slide and use this leading edge and just make sure that I've got it here. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack it right here. Just a quick tack there on the material. And now I can kind of start the actual covering here. I know I just pulled that up a little bit, but I think I've got a good tack there. Now, using the same methodology, pull and iron out this way. So right now I'm just kind of ironing just a little bit of the sheeting. Looks pretty good. I'm committed. Okay, so now since I'm committed here, I'm going to go ahead and iron down my edge. I'm using this motion to push any covering tight that way. And also hopefully eliminate any bubbles. Now it looks like I kind of missed my alignment here a little bit, so that's not ideal. Now I'm sealing. Yeah, so I screwed up a little bit there. I missed that. How deep does my sheeting go here? I'm ironing the sheeting. There. I'm going to iron the sheeting here. So I'm only ironing the sheeted areas and sealing them. And we are getting some ripples here. So you will hopefully get to see the heat gun do its job. Is that a bay? Yeah, that's a bay. I don't want to iron there. Okay, so I think hopefully you can see without that reflector there are some ripples here. So that's what I'm going to take out. With the heat gun. Alright, so trailing edge looks to be completely adhered down now. So now I can unplug my iron for the time and get my, yeah, see, I missed that by about, an eighth of an inch or so, which kind of sucks. I thought I had that. I might be able to cut a real thin piece and go over that and fix that if I so desire. Let me get my heat gun over here. Okay, so I've got my heat gun here now. I still don't know if you're actually going to be able to see this get tightened down or not. With the reflection of that light, I just don't know if you're actually going to be able to see this or not, but we're going to give it a shot here. Now there were areas on the sheeting that had a few ripples too, so I'm tightening them up now also. So I've just you can kind of tell how tight it is just by the tone. So I just successfully removed all of the few bubbles that I had, or not bubbles, but imperfections, wrinkles in here. And if you happen to be going over, and I can see here where I had a joint that I didn't get sanded down quite as good for the cap strip. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. I don't know if any of this is going to translate very well to video or not. Some of these things, seeing the ripples and watching the monocoat do this thing and then tighten up, is just very subtle, and you really have to be present here to see it. I just don't know that it's going to translate very well to video or not. But anyway, suffice it to say that that's the technique I chose to use on this wing panel, and as you can see, it turned out pretty damn nice. I think if I go at this angle, you can kind of see how the rib bays are nice and tight, and I'm not adhered to the cap strips at all, but I can sure see that edge difference between this cap strip here that I didn't get sanded down as much as I should have. I can see it very well. So that's the kind of goes back to one of the earlier videos where you got to be, you know, really, if you want it to look super perfect, you got to have those gaps. And I actually had a gap in this one here. I can feel it. This cap strip was one that I miscut, and there's like a, I don't know, 3/32 gap here, but yet you can't see that at all because it's a gap. It's not a height difference. You can't see it at all, and it's sunk. It's a heat shrunk down, or the fillet or the covering is tight, so you really can't see it. So I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this from here. Obviously, I'm going to finish the other half of the panel. What I'm going to do with the wingtip, whether I'm going to make it a different color or just do red and finish this out in red, which is probably what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to put another. I've got some scrap monocoat, red monocoat there. I'll just cover it with red, and the whole wing will be red here eventually, and even in the center. I think I mentioned earlier maybe about making it black. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make it red, and if I decide to do that black trim scheme, I'll just cut a piece and put it right over the top of that. So there you go. That's about the extent of my skill level of covering using Top Flight monocoat. Bonus footage. So remember that piece of overlap that I had on the trailing edge? I just used it to finish covering this wing tip. Now can you tell that that wasn't one sheet? I can't even tell that it was one sheet. So I'm going to do it again here real quick. And this is how fast and simple this is. I'm not trimming that right now. I'm just getting another piece here to finish this cut. Finish this covering. Let's use the straight edge side. Someone said seal edges with the tip of the iron. I don't do that. I seal edges with the hottest part of the iron. I always try to use the hottest part of the iron to do edges, because edges are not things you want coming up. And there you go. Another really nice edge seal there. Another wingtip that you can't tell the difference that I made it in two different ones. Now, here's the entire wing. I've done both sides now. All that's left for me is to do the red in the middle. Okay, so here's the center section completed now. Now, I didn't show this because I was doing it on the side of the table. This is just a 3-inch wide strip that I put in here, but because there's a dihedral here, I chose to do one piece instead of cutting it into two. And this is where I actually used the heat gun in conjunction with the iron. So I just kind of ironed the sides down a little bit first and the leading edge, and kind of left the middle open and not really ironed. I started to try to iron and it started wrinkling up on me. So what I did was I grabbed the heat gun, started heating this up really good. And this area here was really wrinkly. So what I did was I heated up with the heat gun, put the heat gun down real quick, and then got the iron. And as soon as the bubbles were out of it from the heat gun, then I ironed it down. And I was able to get that really wrinkle free. So this center joint looks really good. At first I thought it was going to look like crap, but then I used the heat gun and the iron together and got it done. So this wing is completely finished.